You asked for it, and here he is. We build on the original version where we added feet, posability of the hands, magic hands, both hands, moving arms and the head. We're taking Grogu to the next level. We're weathering his costume, we're giving him more realistic hands and facial features, adding hair, and just making him about as real as any toy like this can be. Interested? Here we go! When I make a build, I don't want to repeat anything that anybody else has done. I want to kind of give it my own twist. So I'm going to use tools that you probably have around the house, and if you don't, they're relatively cheap. I figured I would try this weathering process using maybe some untraditional approaches. And that's colored pencil. That's right, colored pencils. You can get a whole bunch of these for $1 at a dollar store, and for a couple more dollars at a big box store, you can get a whole variety. Here's some browns and some different colors. The hardest part about this next version was the hair. You didn't want to make it look like a toupee. He's not George Washington or anything like that. It's very, very thin. So I have an approach that involves old clean toothbrushes and old clean paintbrushes and some synthetic stuffing. And if you don't have the whole polyfill bag, you can lift this from inside of the little guy himself when you go to do the first part, and that's put in the structure. Now we'll get a little closer up so you can kind of see the difference. Here's the clean side. Here's the weathered / detail side. I noticed in the show these ridges are very prominent on the little guy, and they just didn't carry that over into this version. Now I tried to take and kind of expand those ridges a little bit. Not a lot of success. Don't want to go through the plastic, so I'm just going to leave them the way that is, and then I'm going to hope that the hair, once it gets put in place, kind of compensates for a little bit of this groove action. You can see a little bit of groove action there that I tried to put in place, but it's too iffy. I looked at him again and again, and these little details make a difference. These little lines here, he's got little rosy cheeks outlined around his eyes. And then we'll just go around here. You can see the lines here to kind of emphasize the grooves that are already there. The great thing about using colored pencils or even washable markers is that you can always correct if you kind of go a little too much. You can go in here and actually erase things. Took a straight blade and actually cut down like this and exposed a lot more of the lead, and then I just holding underneath like this to give it something to push up against, and then just go in here and darkening it in kind of all the little raised parts. Again, you can go a little crazy on this, so you got to be careful, but I use this technique up here, say on the fur. It's not really fur, it's synthetic. I kind of like the thing where he's eating the cookies that are about this color in the aircraft as they were battling. And I'll just leave it at that in case you haven't seen the video. I figured if I used the paint it was just a little too much. I'm just hinting at the fact that there was something there, and then he got cleaned up a little bit. On these seams I used a tan or toasted coffee. Just go in there and rough it up, and then down on the bottom here I just pulled at the fabric because it's already unfinished to begin with. If you don't want too much fringe, I kind of went a little crazy in the back here. I'm probably going to have to trim that off a bit. That's a little too much. Doesn't have to be perfect because it is a little ragged. And then you don't want any of these trailers here, just so you just come and clip those off. As you're working on that, you can see it actually roughs up and weathers the fabric too, which is nice. How you do it is totally up to you. He does have little lines, little wrinkles in his face, and so that's what that is. This is just one of those markers, and I'm just gonna, you can see the difference between his mouth that's been done and what it hasn't been done. So I'm gonna go in here like this
and just finish it off. Do his little nostril. And all these little things make a difference. So I used raspberry in here and just went around, brings his eyes out. I've never used pencils before for this kind of detail, but it just seemed to work. And then you can smudge it with your finger if it's a little too sharp. Got a little too much, just take an eraser and lighten it up or start over again. The great thing about doing one side first is that you can kind of compare to get whatever symmetry you want to get out of it. Side of the pencil. Like that. Take your time with it and you'll be surprised at how much detail you can get with these pencils. And then bring in a different color. I was using a lot of orange peel for some reason. So come in here and bring a little bit of orange peel in there. And I noticed that in the show, his right there on eyelids were a little more defined. Okay, a little peach in the ears here. On the side, flat side, everything flat side as much as possible. You can see what I've done here. And if it's a little liney, that's okay. You can blend it with your fingers. It isn't just like a big patch of red. It's going to kind of radiate. I was perplexed by the hair. He's not like Yoda. He doesn't have a lot of hair. It's very fine and wispy. And so I think I came up with a way. Here's that polyfill I was telling you about. You know, cotton's just not going to do it. Treat it like some pizza dough. You're just kind of flattening it out as wispy as possible. And then I just took a pair of scissors and you just get just like a handful of this. And then you just kind of sprinkle it on top. The toothbrush will work too. Shake it around. Gather them up again. Sprinkle them over the top. So the combination of the bristles and the polyfill really gives it a three-dimensional look. But it's not going to stay that way. You can see that it's already coming through. So what I did is I took a matte spray. I got a good distance away, 12, 14 inches, and just lightly hit it back and forth until it all binded together. So this is what it looks like when it's all finished. I'm going to run a line here and a line here, and then probably on every little peak of his head. I'm taking the gel super glue and then I'm just running a bead ever so small. Now super glue is kind of an overkill, but the great thing about it is sets up in 30 seconds and it's fairly transparent. And then I just take the wispy hair, and you got to be careful because the super glue will go right on you. And kind of press it down on there. Gives you 30 seconds, but then it dries real quick. If anybody else has any ideas about glue that they think would work better, I am absolutely more than happy to hear your thoughts. Okay, well, this is working surprisingly well. Now you want a little bit of an overlap, I guess. You just want to mesh it together here. And I was using my finger and I was getting super glue on there and then it was lifting up the hair and all that stuff. So I ended up using the top of the toothbrush to kind of mash it down here a little bit. Blend in these two pieces here. And you can see that once it dries up, the super glue doesn't shine as much as it does when it's wet. All right, so the hair is down. So everybody needs a haircut, including Grogu. And if you think you've gone too far in this direction, you can just always fill in with a little extra. You can see that the little arches are coming through now. I think I'm going to fill them into about here, and then that will be it. Shaving a haircut, Mr. Grogu? So you can see, this is the part I've cut down, and you can always trim it back even further. I really like how the ears have turned out. And I'll just trim this down through here. I'm real happy how that turned out. And just like everything else in the build, and anytime you make a prop, it's going to be layering. And then we'll come in here like this and see all those little arcs. Again, we're just roughing them in at this point. Getting a sense of what the hand looks like with all the little bends. See, you can see how it kind of faded out. So we'll be doing the same thing here. You can rub it out with your hand, hit with a cloth. Might want to run a couple streaks down here on his nail bed. Use this, just a brown pencil. We're gonna kind of put some marks in, rub them out, and just kind of dirty his palm up so it looks more like that. I might end up regretting this, but I gotta try it out. And the best place to do that is in the back. So if it looks really bad. In this cup I have some burnt sienna and some coffee latte. I'm going to swirl those together, making sandy mud. And then I'm going to water this down a lot. Yeah, see, that's too much. I'm going to take some of that out. Lighten it up a little bit. Stir that around. Yeah, that's better. More coffee latte than anything. Almost dry brushing the dirt on. See, that's almost too much. You know, he kind of drags this thing in the mud, dirt. So that's what I'm trying to replicate. Dries a little lighter is good from my standpoint. Now I'm taking, and I've got barely anything on the brush, and I'm just kind of running into here. Got some extra stuffing material, and so I'm using that to kind of, if I go a little too hard on the brush, wipe it off a little bit. Like this. Let me finish him up, and I'll show you the end result. And then here's an up-close look at everything all finished up. His hands, the weathered look on his garment, the color to his face, his ears, and his head. Very happy on how it all turned out. Thumbs up and comments, always appreciated. Thanks for watching. And if you're interested in figuring out when my next build is, ring that bell. I really appreciate your comments, thoughts, and ideas. And a lot of times you make suggestions that would make the builds just that much better. This is a community of builders, makers, cosplay people, home repair folks. It's not just me, it's you. And I appreciate every one of you. And stay tuned for new builds coming soon, because you never know what you're gonna see.